The Internal Market Bill, the UK Internal Market Bill, under huge establishment siege. I'm going to bring you all the very latest in this report, guys, but if you could please start off, as ever, by clicking that subscribe button and the bell so you don't miss future videos. And please share this video and click join down below there to join the supporters club, become a supporter of Real News and support my work. Would really appreciate that. Now, you may remember that the UK Internal Market Bill, after some bluster, after some whinging from some Conservative MPs, actually no Conservative MPs voted against it in the House of Commons. And of course, in the House of Commons, we have MPs given a democratic mandate from the people. And of course, Boris Johnson secured that big Brexit majority. And the UK Internal Market Bill in Parliament, in terms of the House of Commons, has already been approved on third reading with a massive majority of 84 MPs. That was the majority for the UK Internal Market Bill in the House of Commons, with, of course, MPs elected by us, the people. So that should be it, shouldn't it? That should be done and dusted. Oh no, because in this country we have a system where it now goes to the House of Lords. And of course, if you've watched previous reports I've done, you will know that the number of Lib Dem peers in the House of Lords is a joke. The composition of Lords versus the public mood is frankly farcical. And here we go with the UK Internal Market Bill, which, as I said, not a single Conservative MP voted against. We did see some Conservative MPs abstain, including the likes of former Prime Minister Theresa May, but no Conservative MPs voted against it, and it passed with a majority of 84, a massive majority, an actual democratic mandate. This is what I pointed out on Twitter. I said, establishment whinging, I'm going to get to that in a minute, establishment whinging about the UK Internal Market Bill, pretty sour, considering MPs backed it with a strong 84 majority, those with an actual democratic mandate. Now, before I get on to the establishment whinging on this that we're seeing, let's just remind ourselves of why we have the UK Internal Market Bill with clauses that, of course, upset the EU to the degree that they are proceeding with legal action. Of course, there are clauses within the UK Internal Market Bill that override the rotten withdrawal agreement. But let's just remember, because this was a story that I think was massively underreported, an element to these negotiations, and why the UK Internal Market Bill is so important. Let's just remember what Prime Minister Boris Johnson had to point out in the Telegraph. He accused the European Union of threatening to impose a food blockade that would destroy the economic and territorial integrity of the UK. As he wrote in the Telegraph, we are being told that the EU will not only impose tariffs on goods moving from Great Britain to Northern Ireland, but they might actually stop the transport of food products from GB to NI. I have to say, Boris said, we never seriously believed that the EU would be willing to use a treaty negotiated in good faith to blockade one part of the UK, to cut it off, or that they would actually threaten to destroy the economic and territorial integrity of the UK. Boris going on to say in the Telegraph, we cannot leave the theoretical power to carve up our country, to divide it, in the hands of an international organisation. We have to protect the UK from that disaster. That is why we have devised a legal safety net in the UK Internal Market Bill to clarify the position and to sort out the inconsistencies. Now, when our Prime Minister revealed that these sorts of threats were being made, you didn't see a massive establishment outcry then, did you? You didn't see the great and the good come out and say, how dare the EU even suggest such a thing towards the UK? No, you had silence. And yet, when it comes to the UK Internal Market Bill now, they all seem to have quite a lot to say. As the Sky News analysis points out, Boris Johnson's Internal Market Bill isn't just being opposed by leading bishops, including Justin Welby. It will face an unholy battering when it's debated for the first time in where? In the House of Lords. The Archbishop of Canterbury is one of 113 peers due to speak at the bill's two-day second reading debate, when it won't be defeated because their lordships don't do anything so vulgar as defeat bills at second reading, but it will face bitter opposition in the House of Lords. And over the next few months, in what promises to be a fractious committee stage, it will be pulled apart, chewed up and spat out by the overwhelmingly pro-Remain House of Lords, putting peers on a collision course with the Commons and setting up a bruising clash with the Prime Minister. Isn't this farcical that we've got a collision course, a confrontation, when this has been passed, and I'll just reiterate it again, a majority of 84 MPs have already passed this in the House of Commons, and yet we see establishment pushback in the House of Lords. Now, the Archbishops of the UK and Ireland penned a joint letter warning that the government's controversial new Brexit legislation could undermine trust between the four home nations ahead of the peers in the House of Lords debating the Internal Market Bill today. The Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, tweeted out the UK Internal Market Bill would have enormous moral, political and legal consequences in its current form. And then he went on to point out a joint letter put out today, including the Archbishop of York, who, like Justin Welby, these two are actually in the Lords. So they can speak, they can vote, they're actually in the House of Lords. As the Times report, all 5 of Britain and Ireland's most senior archbishops and bishops have written a rare joint letter saying the Internal Market Bill was a disastrous precedent by equipping ministers to break the law. They warn that the bill, which is to be debated in the House of Lords today, would have particularly disturbing consequences for the Good Friday Agreement and for democracy. They wrote, "We are taking the rare step of writing together because the decisions implemented in this bill will profoundly affect the future of our countries and the relationships between them." The letter warned that the bill currently asks the country's highest lawmaking body to equip a government minister to break international law. This is an enormous moral as well as political and legal consequences. Now, Robert Jenrick, the community secretary, told Times Radio today, leaders of our faith communities have a voice and are free to weigh in on any issue they choose. I think they're wrong in this case. It's incredibly important as the United Kingdom government that we can proceed. And Andrew Jenkins, the Brexiteer MP, absolutely steadfast, saying, I set out my views and why I believe the Internal Market Bill is necessary to deliver Brexit. No sovereign country can be subject to foreign laws on which it has no say. Now, why this is all relevant is because Bloomberg put out a report. And I know it'd be easy and tempting to just dismiss what goes on in the Lords, but I do report it on here because I do think it is important. And, lots of you guys saying thank you for reporting this stuff. Now, Bloomberg have a report that British officials are prepared to water down Boris Johnson's controversial Brexit legislation in a move that could revive failing talks with the EU, according to people familiar with the matter. So far, the PM has refused, but his officials believe Parliament will force his hand when members of the House of Lords, the UK's unelected chamber, remove the clauses that would breach international law. The bloc is taking legal action, of course, against the UK, Bloomberg report. But they also point out that the bill begins its process through the Lords on Monday. Legislators there are unlikely to reject the draft law entirely this week, but are certain to take out the most controversial parts in the weeks ahead. People familiar with the government's position said that will force Johnson to decide how hard to fight to keep the clauses. The people said they expected Johnson to drop or dilute the most difficult sections of the law if he secures an overarching trade deal with the EU, potentially as part of negotiations with the bloc. Now, when I tweeted out earlier about this farce, frankly, this position where you've got an establishment pushback after 84 majority of MPs in the elected House of Commons have already voted for it, Roger Helm was saying, don't forget that the EU itself is in breach of the withdrawal agreement terms to negotiate in good faith. They can't complain if we repudiate it now. And Darren Grimes, Brexiteer, Darren Grimes, commentator, saying, responding to the Archbishop of Canterbury directly, saying 66% of Anglicans voted leave. He said, I'd hazard a guess that says a majority of us support a bill that ensures the EU cannot issue thinly veiled threats to the food supply of a part of the UK too. Of course, chunks of the media are completely ignoring that the EU suggested this outrageous push in the negotiations, the outrageous stance. They're ignoring that part, of course, but the UK Internal Market Bill, as I said, already voted for by a large majority of MPs, but we're now seeing the House of Lords and the establishment push back. Let me know what you think about this, guys. Let me know what you think Boris and the government should do. And of course, as ever, if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. That really helps me out. And if you appreciate my reports, if you find them helpful and informative, please consider becoming a supporter of my work. Would really appreciate it if you hit that join button and become a supporter. And as ever, guys, thank you so much for watching.